You know that moment when you realize being right isn't always worth it. When standing your ground costs you more than you ever thought possible. I learned that the hard way, the kind of hard way that leaves scars you can't see but feel every single day. I want to tell you what happened to me, and maybe you'll understand why sometimes being wise matters more than being right. So tell me, before I even start, if someone betrayed you, would you fight for your truth or would you walk away to keep your peace? My story starts about 2 years ago. I was working as a senior manager in a mid-sized software company. I had built my way up from scratch, from a junior intern to a respected name in the office. People trusted me, not because I was loud or political, but because I was consistent. I never lied, never backstabbed, never cheated anyone. I believed doing the right thing always pays off eventually. I believed in karma, in honesty, in being fair. Turns out the world doesn't always reward that. The company had recently gone through a big restructuring. New management came in, bringing in their people, changing policies, and slowly shifting the culture from team first to numbers first. It wasn't the same place I had once loved working in. Still, I tried to adapt. I told myself, be patient. Just keep doing your best. Then came the project that changed everything. It was a high-profile contract with a huge client from the UK. The project could make or break the company's reputation. And I was chosen to lead it, a huge honor, and honestly, a little terrifying. My team was small but talented. Among them was a guy named Ryan, who I had mentored for years. I trusted him. I used to say he was like a younger version of me, ambitious, smart, and passionate. The first few weeks were intense. Long nights, endless revisions, meetings that stretched past midnight. I started noticing small mistakes in Ryan's reports, missing data, miscalculations, things that didn't align with our strategy. I'd correct them quietly because I didn't want to embarrass him. But slowly, those mistakes started causing delays, and the client wasn't happy. My boss, Mr. Collins, started breathing down my neck. "We can't afford another delay, Mark," he'd say in his usual clipped tone. "Fix it. I don't care how." I did everything I could. I restructured the workflow, reassigned tasks, even took on extra work myself to make up for the delays. But one morning I came into the office and found something that stopped my heart. A confidential client report full of sensitive data had been leaked. It was all over the internal chat groups. Someone had sent it to people outside our team. It was a huge breach of protocol, and if the client found out, we'd lose everything. Collins called an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was suffocating. Everyone sat around the conference table, eyes darting, fingers fidgeting. Collins was furious. Who leaked the document? He demanded. No one spoke. I sat there, my palms sweating. Then he slammed a printed email onto the table. It was from Ryan's company email address, the same report sent to an external recipient. Collins turned to me. "This is your team, Mark. Explain this." Ryan's face went pale. "Sir, I didn't," he started, but Collins cut him off. "Save it. The evidence is clear. You're suspended pending investigation." Then he turned to me again. "Mark, as the project head, this falls on you. You're accountable." It felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. I was accountable for something I didn't even know about. After the meeting, I cornered Ryan in the hallway. "What the hell happened?" I asked. His eyes darted around nervously. "I swear, Mark, I didn't do it. Someone must have used my credentials. I left my system unlocked for a few minutes yesterday." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Still, I defended him during the internal inquiry. I told Collins there wasn't enough proof. I insisted Ryan deserved the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that was my first mistake, choosing loyalty over logic. The next few weeks were chaos. The client found out about the leak and almost pulled the plug. Collins was under pressure, and that pressure rolled downhill. I became the easy scapegoat. I was removed from the project, temporarily, and replaced by none other than you. Guessed it, Ryan. The same guy who had been accused of leaking. The report was now leading the project I had poured my soul into. That's When I knew something was off, I started digging. I stayed late at night checking server logs, cross-referencing timestamps. I even went through archived chat histories. What I found made my stomach twist. The leaked report had been sent not from Ryan's system, but from a remote login, one that originated from Collins's private network. And guess who had access to that? Ryan. It hit me like a punch. They had planned it. Ryan and Collins had worked together to frame me, to push me out, so Ryan could take my place and Collins could claim credit for fixing the problem. My whole world started crumbling. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I'd stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m., replaying every moment, every conversation. How did I not see it coming? I wanted to confront them right then and there, to expose them for the snakes they were. But then something stopped me. A voice in my head that said, "Be smart, Mark. Don't act out of anger. Gather proof." So that's what I did. For weeks, I collected evidence quietly. I backed up logs, emails, screenshots, everything that showed how they had manipulated the situation. I even managed to retrieve an internal chat where Ryan bragged to someone about his promotion coming soon. It made me sick. I was ready to take it all to HR to blow the whole thing open. But then fate played another cruel trick. Before I could submit the evidence, Collins called me into his office. He had that smug look, the one people wear when they think they've already won. "Mark," he said, pretending to sound sympathetic, "we've decided to let you go. It's nothing personal, just ... performance related." I laughed bitterly. Performance related. I had literally built that project from the ground up. I wanted to scream, to throw the evidence in his face right there. But I didn't. I walked out quietly, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. The company was my second home, and now it had turned into a battlefield. As I packed up my things, my coworkers avoided eye contact. Some whispered apologies, others just looked away. That night, sat in my car outside the office, the rain blurring the windshield, and asked myself, should I fight this? Should I go to HR with the proof and expose them both? Or should I walk away, save my dignity, and start over somewhere new? My heart wanted revenge, but my mind whispered, what will you really win? Still, the anger burned too deep. I couldn't let it go, not after losing everything I'd worked for. So I took the evidence to HR. The next week, they opened an internal investigation. For a moment, I felt relief. Justice was finally coming. But I was wrong again. HR didn't care. They said the evidence was inconclusive. They said remote access logs could be tampered with. They said Ryan had proven himself since taking over. In other words, they swept it under the rug. A month later, the company announced that Ryan and Collins had successfully delivered the project and received exemplary performance awards. That broke me. All the sleepless nights, the loyalty, the truth, none of it mattered. I was painted as the bitter ex-employee who couldn't handle being replaced. My professional reputation took a hit. No one wanted to hire a problematic manager. So I did what any desperate person would do. I started thinking of ways to get even. Not violent, not illegal, but something that would make them feel what I felt. I started building a plan. But before I tell you what I did next, I need to ask you something. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you let it go and move on? Or would you fight back and make them pay for what they did? Take a second, think about it, and tell me in the comments below what you would have done. Because what I did next changed everything. In the weeks that followed, I began contacting people who had left the company before me. I found out that I wasn't the first one Collins had done this to. He had a pattern pushing out employees who stood up for themselves and replacing them with loyal puppets. Some of them were still angry, others had moved on. But when I told them my story, they all said the same thing. You'll never win against him. He's too connected. Maybe they were right. But I didn't care anymore. It wasn't about winning. It was about truth. I reached out to one of my old friends, a journalist who worked for a business magazine. I gave him the full story, all the evidence, all the manipulation, all the lies. He agreed to investigate. He warned me that if the story went public, it could ruin careers, including mine. But I didn't hesitate. Do it, I said. Let the world know who they really are. As the days passed, I felt a strange mix of fear and liberation. I knew I was burning bridges I could never rebuild, but it felt like I was finally breathing again. Then, just a week later, the story dropped front page, detailed, undeniable. It named names, exposed the manipulation, and painted a very different picture of what had happened inside that company. The internet exploded. People started sharing it, commenting, calling out the company for its toxic culture. Collins and Ryan went silent. For the first time in months, I felt like justice had finally caught up. But I was wrong again. The storm that followed was far worse than I could have imagined. So there I was, sitting in my car outside that same office building where I used to walk in with confidence every morning. But this time, I wasn't walking in as the project head. I was walking in as a consultant from a rival firm, brought in to help the same company fix the problems that arose after I left. Funny, isn't it? Life has a way of bringing you full circle. Sometimes as a teacher, sometimes as a lesson. When I entered the meeting room, I saw all the familiar faces. My ex-boss, the colleagues who had sided against me, and even a few new hires. The air was thick with awkwardness. No one expected me to be back. My boss tried to act casual, but I could see the discomfort behind his forced smile. "Good to see you again," he said, pretending nothing ever happened. I smiled back, but this time I wasn't angry. I had outgrown the need for revenge. I was there to do my job and walk away wiser. Asterisk, as the meeting started, I noticed something ironic. The new project they were struggling with was almost identical to the one I had proposed a year ago. The same strategy, the same vision. Only this time, they were failing because they didn't have the right person to execute it. My boss began explaining the issues, blaming market conditions and communication breakdowns. I didn't say a word. I just listened, nodding politely, while internally I was thinking, this is exactly what happens when you choose pride over wisdom. After his long explanation, he finally turned to me and said, "So, what do you think we should do?" Asterisk, that moment was powerful. I could have humiliated him, reminded everyone how they ignored me when I tried to do the right thing. But instead, I decided to be wise, not right. I calmly laid out a new plan, one that built on the original concept but adapted to the current situation. My ideas were clear, logical, and achievable. Everyone listened quietly, and for the first time, my ex-boss actually took notes. When I finished, he nodded slowly and said, "That's impressive." I just smiled and said, "It's not about being right. It's about doing what works." Asterisk, over the next few weeks, I worked closely with the team to fix their system. Slowly, things began to improve. Their profits rose, deadlines were met, and the team started trusting me again. But this time, I kept my distance emotionally. I was there as a professional, not as someone seeking validation. One day, after a particularly productive session, my ex-boss called me into his office. He looked tired but genuine. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I was too proud to listen before. You were right back then." Asterisk. I smiled softly and replied, "Maybe, but being right isn't what matters. What matters is that the company is finally moving forward." He nodded, looking ashamed but relieved. "You've changed," he said. I chuckled. "Yeah, I had to learn it the hard way. Sometimes being right ruins everything, but being wise saves it." Asterisk. Before leaving the company for good, I met some of my old colleagues. Some apologized, some avoided me out of guilt, and a few even asked for advice on their projects. I realized something profound that day. People don't remember who was right in an argument. They remember who acted with grace when things fell apart. And that's what wisdom is, the courage to stay calm when your ego screams for recognition. Asterisk, when I returned home that night, sat on my balcony, watching the city lights. I thought about everything I had gone through, the betrayal, the anger, the isolation. It all hurt deeply at the time, but now it made sense. Life was teaching me that truth doesn't always win through confrontation. Sometimes it wins through silence, patience, and time. I used to think standing up for what's right meant proving others wrong. But now I know. Standing up for what's right often means walking away and letting time reveal the truth for you. Asterisk a few months later. I started mentoring young professionals online, sharing my experiences about workplace challenges and emotional intelligence. I wanted others to learn from my mistakes, to understand that wisdom is not about giving up. It's about choosing your battles wisely. I remember one of my mentees once asked me, "Sir, do you regret not fighting harder for your ideas?" I smiled and said, "No, because if I had fought harder, I might have won the argument but lost my peace." He looked confused, so I added, "Sometimes. Peace of mind is the real victory." Asterisk, so that's the situation I was in. I had every reason to fight, to prove I was right, to get revenge. But instead, I chose to be wise. And that decision changed everything for me, not just in my career, but in my entire outlook on life. Before I tell you what happened in the very end, I want you to pause for a second and think, what would you have done in my shoes? Would you have confronted your boss again, demanded justice, or walked away with silent dignity? Comment below what you would have done. I genuinely want to know your thoughts. Asterisk now. Here's how it all ended. A few weeks after my final project with the company concluded, I got an unexpected email. It was from the CEO of another major firm. Apparently, my ex-boss had recommended me personally for a senior position. I couldn't believe it. The same man who once dismissed me now trusted me enough to vouch for my leadership. When I called him to thank him, he said, "You taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes the smartest person in the room isn't the loudest one." That sentence hit me deeply. I realized that my quiet strength had earned more respect than any argument ever could. Asterisk in my new role. I handled multiple teams across different countries. The stress was real, but the lessons from my past kept me grounded. I always encouraged my teams to speak up, but also to listen, really listen, because every disagreement carries a hidden lesson if you're humble enough to see it. I even created a motto for my department: be wise, not right. It became our culture. Every decision we made had to pass that test. Was it based on ego or wisdom? Asterisk, over the years, I saw that principle transform people's lives. Conflicts reduced, collaboration improved, and trust became our biggest asset. And every time I saw two colleagues arguing, I'd step in and ask gently, "Do you want to be right, or do you want to make it work?" That simple question stopped more arguments than any policy ever could. Asterisk, looking back now. I can honestly say that being betrayed by my boss was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It forced me to grow, to reflect, and to evolve from being right to being wise. Because being right feeds your pride, but being wise feeds your soul. And at the end of the day, peace is more valuable than victory. Asterisk, if you're listening to this story right now and you're going through something similar, maybe your efforts are being ignored. Maybe someone's taking credit for your work. Or maybe you're being punished for speaking the truth. Remember this: life always balances the scales, but not on your timetable. Stay calm, stay kind, and stay wise. The truth doesn't need you to defend it. It just needs you to live it. Asterisk, in the end, I learned that the world doesn't reward those who shout the loudest. It rewards those who stay steady when everything shakes. So yes, I walked away, but I didn't lose. I won in the quietest, most powerful way possible. Asterisk, if you were on my side in this story, hit that like button. And if you've ever been in a similar situation where being wise mattered more than being right, share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one. And remember, sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I'll see you all in the next story.